now. Free, free Palestine. 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 Palestine remains in my heart.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Apartheid of Podcast. Today I'm joined, myself, Joseph, by Dario.
Hello, it's me as well, Dario, and we are joined by Malak Mattar, a Palestinian artist from Gaza, whose art we've been seeing a lot of all over Instagram. It's beautiful, it's powerful, it's empowering, and we've got a lot to talk about. And so welcome, Malak. And the first question I'm going to ask you is, what drove you to become an artist?
Thank you so much for having me. It's really an honor. First of all, I'd like to tell more about my life in Gaza pre-wars, and that was before I was 8 years old. As any child, I grew up with a very connected family. I grew up having a very strong relation with my relatives, with my friends. And also I was going to schools when I was 6 years old to UNRWA school because I'm a refugee. As many other Gazans living in Gaza, we all, like our grandparents, were expelled from their homes back in 1948. So as I said, it was like a very normal, it was a very warm life that I had back then. When I was 8 years old, I had the first experience of war. And for me, this word, war, I didn't even know what it meant unless I experienced it all of a sudden in reality.
Yes.
And I remember that time, I'm confused. Maybe it's the first war or the second, but I was doing my final exams. I was in my second grade, and suddenly an emergency were all over my school. The rings, everything was like, it was a very chaotic situation. Teachers putting in, telling us to all go out, and everybody was running. And I can imagine it, like, and I can remember it well. It was like the sky was gray. There were rockets throwing. There were also planes, military planes in the sky. So that time I felt there's kind of risk, but I didn't feel like I might be killed. The moment I reached to my home through my mom came to my school and took me back home. It continued. Like, it was a very traumatizing experience because at that time I was only 8 years old. We used to listen to radios all the time, watching TV when we have electricity, of course. I saw very graphic scenes of people getting killed and cut and shattered. My age, younger babies and elderlies, women. And I was always hearing the ambulances and also like the sounds of warning. So after this, I survived the first war. And as I was just like naturally adapting to life post-war, it was, of course, very difficult because the first experience I had has pretty much had its own influence in my personality. I changed from a person who really loved going out, loved meeting people, to a person who is completely negative, introvert, to a person who's not willing to to be happy in life, although I was pretty young. A few years later, we had another war. It was 2 years later, we had the second war in Gaza, which pretty much was a flashback for everything. The sound of ambulance, it completely brought you back to everything happened in 2008. And I saw more scenes of people getting also killed. Buildings around my house was demolished. The sound of bombings were very scary that we and my family, like you can imagine, we are
Yeah.
a family. We were all sitting under the table. We thought it would protect us in any way, which is not the case. But in that time,
Malak, you were how old at this point?
I was 10 years old.
10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember very well, and each time, like my family, everybody would be sitting under our lunch table as we thought it would protect us in any way. Although it's not the case, because civilians who had nothing to do with any political party were killed. I have relatives who were killed, etc. So again, it was a very tough experience. It was actually war, and the word explains itself. A few years later, and at that time, the second war, after going back to school, we had groups of doctors. As I remember, it was Organization of Doctors Without Borders, and they were trying to engage us in activities um, to release and to deal with like the PTSD that we had. And I was actually diagnosed with PTSD at that time. So 2 years later, I don't know if it was 2000, it was 2014, we had another war that was the most damaging. It was 51 days of war. It was pretty hard because at that time we had almost no electricity. We were not allowed to go out. It was like a very, it's a lockdown, but it's pretty much different from the lockdown we are living now. For me, it's a joke, like having to just stay at home for like a virus.
Yeah.
So the image that I always have is a very dark. My place was very dark. All the family were gathering around a very tiny radio, and that radio would just be literally every minute the number increased by tens of people. And also it was like North Gaza, South Gaza, it's now in the east, in the west. And like that was, at that time I didn't have this chance to talk about my feelings. And that's why I stress so much about feelings through my artwork. Because at that time I felt that I was meaningless. I felt like what my life worth is. I could die within a second and nobody would care because other people died. Other people were killed. As I said, it was a very stressful atmosphere because your body at that time starts having this alarm system that it keeps your body waiting for the second rocket that would kill you. So this is how the PTSD got very worse. You imagine the worst. You have attacks, anxiety attacks, etc. So at that time, I decided that I'm not gonna keep doing, like I'm not gonna keep having this situation of laying in bed all the time, of shaking every like few minutes because of the rockets. I'm gonna do something to kill this time. I'm gonna do something to distract myself from the terror and from the scary feelings, because the most scary thing that I had thought of, it's not me killing, but it's one of my family would be killed.
Yeah.
So for me, I always had in mind, if I need to survive, I survive with all my family. If I need to be killed, I'm killed with all my family. So I decided, I'm sorry, it's intense.
No.
It's the truth.
Please.
Yeah. So I had a gift box from my school. It was actually like kind of notebooks. It was like papers, and I had watercolor. That was a word. So I remember I got awarded this because of exam. I got like a full mark in when I was young, and I thought I would never like use it. Like it just felt appealing that it has colors and it's nice shape. Then I decided, okay, like I'm just gonna try. I'm just gonna do whatever it takes to just distract myself. And then I started painting the first drawing, and so far I didn't stop because it made me feel better. It made me feel like I don't care what's going on around me. I don't care whether I'm surviving or not.
Yeah.
At least I have something that I feel strongly attached to. It feels like art is a really refuge. Like it feels like I felt like I'm homeless, and then I found a home by just going and painting. Then yeah, 1 year later than this, um, no, not even one. Yeah, it was 1 year almost. I
Mhm.
had my first solo exhibition in Gaza Strip.
Wow.
I was 15 years old. I was
Yeah.
painting like crazy. I was very prolific. What I don't know what's that. Like I was very productive.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, I showed my artwork to a group, a cultural organization, and they were very impressed. And we had this solo exhibition. At that time, I don't know if that was luck or just people liked my art, but like in the Gaza Strip after the war, there was a huge foreign coverage to Gaza Strip, and they focused more like at least the articles that like the people they were contacting me, they were more into like art despite of the siege, the war. So like I started getting interviews from big newspaper from Italy, France, Spain, the US, India, and even Palestinian. Like almost most of newspaper in Palestine wrote about me,
Yeah.
or because of the experience I had. Because I started not after the last war; it was during the attack.
Hmm.
So yes, I started having Facebook as a way of connecting with people all over the world.
Yeah.
I used English, although my English was terrible. Like I started like using translation. I started connecting with people,
Yeah.
and I started selling my artwork too. I was selling them like uh, for a very simple amount of money. But yeah,
Oh.
uh,
And you were
yeah,
still only 16, did you say?
like 15, something like
15.
that.
Yeah.
Started, and like yeah, for me making money out of something that I truly loved was a blessing.
Yeah.
And then after this in 2017 I had the last year in high school, we call it tawjihi,
Yeah.
which you know how important this is for Palestinian for
Definitely.
unknown reasons. um, so I sat with my family and I told them I need to travel for my education outside Gaza. And I was actually taken as a joke. Like, are you kidding?
Yeah.
And that for many reasons, of course, like for like Arab countries, it's very difficult for young women. I was only 17, single, Muslim. So the three reasons, and the society as well, all reasons resulted in a very huge no to for me traveling.
Yeah.
Then I insisted, I told my family what it takes for me to go out to travel. And they said, okay, get the top in Palestine. And I said, okay, I will do that. And then I had to Google how many students they were, and they were like 30 students. And I said, okay, I have no hope that time. But I was studying day in and day out. I had the um, the GPA that I wanted to have, which is 99.3 percent, which means that I
Wow.
make mistakes in all the subjects I have. And indeed, I got the second top in Palestine and the first in Gaza Strip.
Amazing.
That was this like it was scary for me going through this experience.
Yeah.
Then after the press, the festivals, the money I received from the ministry, etc., I came to my parents and I needed to apply to scholarships, and they were saying like, no, like you will just study in Gaza. Like you think we are crazy? You will let you go? You don't even know the streets that goes to your home, and you need to travel to a foreign country.
Yeah.
And they said, like, we just did that because we knew that we just wanted you to do the most you can, but we didn't know that you would get the first top or the second top. And here comes another struggle, convincing them. And yeah, I lost like few months. I wasn't able to apply like my peers to the first year. I got half scholarship, like it was only a tuition fee scholarship to a private school here in Turkey. Of course, I'm living my living expenses. I'm trying my best to do it through my speaking engagements, my artwork, and other things. Um, so yeah, like I came to Turkey in 2017. I was 17 years old, and yeah, it was very difficult. And
Yeah.
but the way from Gaza to Turkey was really piece of hell. I was stuck in the border, at the Egyptian border, for 4 days. It was very humiliating conditions. The way we were treated by, like Egyptian soldiers, it was very like very humiliating experience. And going back was not an option because this means that I'm going again to a sieged city with less freedom and less um, like art organizations sponsorship and
Yeah.
support. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, I mean, I that's an amazing
Unbelievable
story. It's
Yeah.
it's just insane. And the thing is that I know I have a friend from university who also has a similar kind of story of leaving,
Mhm.
of just really wanting to go abroad for education, and she
Mhm.
managed to do so. And so it's insane to hear these stories because they're so similar and yet they're such real experiences for every individual.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you, I mean, you started, art was something that you resorted to while you were in Gaza, but now that you are abroad and you're living in Turkey and you're still creating a lot of art,
Yeah.
what does it mean to be an artist from Gaza but painting abroad? Like, what does it mean to you
Mhm.
to still be creating art even when you're out technically out of
Yeah.
the conflict itself in Gaza? Obviously, it's not like you're completely separate from it.
Yeah.
You never
Yeah.
will be. But and,
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask that question.
Yeah. Well, growing up in Gaza, like, and having this incredible experience at a very young age, it has developed complex feelings of love and hate. Like, at the end, like, I loved Gaza. I loved the port. I loved the connection with my family. I loved my people. But at the end, like, when I decided that I need to leave, I just felt like oppression. I couldn't hold oppression anymore.
Yeah.
I couldn't. I was very, very angry at the fact that I only lived through just 4 hours of electricity, and it made me very um, annoyed that only this hour of electricity like the electricity would come when basically the electricity company makes sure that everyone is asleep.
Yeah.
So it was all in like at midnight. So it literally, like, I had days where I didn't see electricity. Um, and the fact that, like, I was very fortunate to go to Jerusalem and to go to the West Bank for exhibitions, but also, like, it was very intense going through the checkpoints and going through, like, to seeing the other part of the country that we always studied about, but knowing that I will not get into these places without an Israeli permission. And of course, apart from the ugly treatment we faced from Israeli soldiers in areas, checkpoints. Um, and I would say, like, for somebody who's um, like liberated, I also had difficult time dealing with a society that, like, in a way, like, women had to be certain way in a society. Like she can't really be, she can't really like live her life the way she wants, because at the end there's a society, there's a conservative family. So like many reasons cooperated, and I decided that I need to see life differently outside Gaza. And surprisingly, I thought that I would, when I came to Istanbul, I thought I would paint the Blue Mosque and I would paint the mosques in Istanbul and the ferries, but that was not the case. Like in Istanbul, I never felt, I never belonged here. Like for many reasons, I didn't feel like it can be like a home for me. So I really had this attachment to my country, to my cause. Even when I came here to Gaza, I was to come here to Istanbul. I was very up to date to everything that was happening. Every day, I would check the news. I would see what happened, and the electricity, the unemployment rate, um, uh,
Yeah.
everything about Gaza. I was living in Gaza, but I was physically somewhere else. So I painted about how home felt like, from a homesick, um, like from me being homesick. So this is how my experience shifted. Like when I was in Gaza, my paintings were more on my feelings towards the electricity cut, towards the siege in Gaza, not being able to travel, um,
Yeah.
the killing of innocent people, the killing of innocent kids, um, banning kids from having full treatment and like outside. And so I painted about that, what I saw through my eyes in the Gaza Strip.
Yeah.
But coming to Istanbul, I started looking at Gaza from like from abroad, from somebody who's not in Gaza anymore. And like, yeah, like I just painted Gaza like when I came here.
I guess to begin with, the story that you just told us, which is just, beyond incredible, quite frankly. And as someone who has grown up in London for 18, 20 years,
Mhm.
and I guess a lot of our listeners, it's so difficult. I don't think I'll ever be able to even begin to imagine what it is like to be 8, 9, 10, what you went through your childhood, living through bombs falling, around you, and that sense of fear, and as you spoke about, Malik, being diagnosed with PTSD. But then one of the things you also mentioned was the fact that you were able to connect with people through Facebook and through social media, as well as the fact that what you were painting even today is a culmination of your emotional response, but also just your emotions at that point. And I think it when you said that you were able to connect with people via Facebook, I think it might be a little bit of a oversimplification, because I think you're also, what I can relate to and connect with is the work that you produce, right? And the power behind your work, the beauty, and that sense of emotion that you can really clearly see in the work that you produce, whether it is George Floyd, or whether it is Frida Kahlo, who you've painted before, or many other particularly female human faces. That's even just scrolling through your Instagram, Malak, one of the clear things you can see is there's such an emphasis on human faces, and right in the sometimes, most of the time I believe it's just one, isn't it? But it's it's right, it's centralized, it's what you're looking at as the audience to your artwork. And I wanted to ask you, what does it mean to represent these human faces, these female human faces, as a female artist?
Well, when I started painting, as I said, like my motive to start was because I was not heard. I wasn't able to share my emotions, to tell about how I feel, what I'm scared of, to talk about my plans, and being able to put my emotions somewhere. Like for me, like painting is the same as speaking with someone who would hear everything you'd say.
What a
So
beautiful way
having
to put it.
thank you. when I had this, my Facebook, when I started, it was more like a diary. Like I would post something and people would talk to me. I would tell them about how it feels.
Yeah.
And like I really know how much people were influenced when I was receiving messages saying that, Malak, you changed how we thought of Gaza, or you changed how we were like very pro-Israel and thinking that you, Malak,
Wow.
and your people are terrorists because this is what they see in the media, to a
Yeah.
very like beautiful human beings out there.
And what was it? What was it like to
Mhm.
I mean, obviously you've produced the art. You don't always know how it's going to be received, but what was it like? Like obviously getting that back from your art.
Well, for me, this felt like a very big thing, having
For sure.
to change somebody's opinion or attitude,
Yeah.
attitudes toward a cause that is a very big and complicated cause. So for me, I felt like I am in the right track. I'm doing the right thing. My friend, um, we met actually 2014. He's like, he was very pro-Israel, and
Yeah.
when I was very young, they were arguing, and he was saying, I hear this and I know this, and he, like, we didn't speak at the beginning, then he kept following my artwork, and
Yeah.
after all this time, he was one of the biggest activists for Palestine, helping
Yeah.
Palestinians in almost every way he could. So I'd say art has helped me uh, connect with people who are willing to listen.
And
Like
transform. It
yeah,
sounds.
yeah,
It's
and they
so
had
powerful.
exactly. And when you live in, for example, in Europe or the US, and then you hear the news about Gaza, and then you hear it, it triggers like the scenes you've seen, which is destructions, which is murder of people, like a war zone. But then when you meet somebody who's actually creating artwork, creating pieces of your music, like
Yeah.
dancing, doing all those things that people outside actually do. So it feels like we are connected in a
Yeah.
way or another by our humanity, not our
Yeah.
geographical um, like our geographical places. So, like, my artwork has helped me, has helped other people understand the situation, has changed how people uh, thought of Palestinians, because we're not only, like, I spoke about love in Palestine, I
Yeah.
spoke about like happiness, weddings, tradition, and customs. So, for people like having to receive this, it made them sure that we are people who have very rich culture. We are
Yeah.
people that we are trying to enjoy our life despite of everything that we are living through, which makes it makes our ways of pursuing happiness very unique, because like people can't imagine that they are living all their life in Europe, never lived in war, and then when you are telling them how it felt, they would say like, we wouldn't have this power to do that, we wouldn't have this courage. So it's very unique that we are like Palestinians, we try to live life as it is despite of everything.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely something that I was, a huge part of your work that attracted me to it, and also to the cause itself. It's that sense of the recognition of humanity,
Yeah,
that of Palestinian consciousness, I guess you could call it
yeah,
in a sense, that is very much what connects us and what binds us together, both as myself as an activist from London, and
yeah.
yourself as a Palestinian painter now living in Istanbul. But I wanted to ask you, I mean, Malak, do you see yourself as an activist?
Well, like I feel very strongly, like for me, I always believe that we are all human beings, and
For
what
sure.
happens, like it's not only for Palestinians, for Black lives, for um,
Yeah.
it's not really, it's never about the race, it's never about where you come from, it's never about the color of your skin. I feel very strongly attached to the struggles of people. no matter where they come from. So I don't know if I can call myself an activist, but I just feel like I react very strongly to whenever I hear about injustice,
Yeah.
Yeah.
especially for women injustice.
I think that, I think that's what actually brings us all here today, is the fact that we have such strong emotions to what we're seeing or things that we've heard.
Exactly.
I wanted to ask, do you think that the art of creation, so just making art and being an artist itself, is a form of resistance? Or is it also a form of empowerment for both yourself, which I know you've told us it is when you were in Gaza, especially? It was empowering. Yeah. It was distracting, but it was also empowering and gave you what you've told us is that it gave you a sense of purpose. But do you think that it can also be a form of empowerment for the wider community? And is that the kind of art that you feel you're making, or is it kind of more self-expression?
Well, like I'd say art, of course, it is resistance. And
yeah,
for us Palestinians, like even going there and say Palestine or I am Palestinian, it's a thing. Like just saying Palestine, not Israel, is actually resistance, because by just saying you are from Palestine, people will hate you. Like some people will hate you, especially like Israelis, pro-Israelis, because some people, they don't believe that we even exist. Yeah. So I believe that we just standing, telling people that we are from this holy place, we have this culture, we have this embroidery, it's actually a form of resistance. So what about like making art, and art that speaks about your home, speaks about your people, speaks about your struggle, and say that I am a Palestinian artist? This is actually like, it's more like two ways of resistance, that you are enduring all these struggles, all this suffering, but at the same time, you are not like wanted by so many people, you are hated by so many people. So of course art is resistance. And in another way, art is being censored. Palestinian art, in France, in Palestine, there were art exhibition for Slimane Mansour. He's a very iconic Palestinian artist. The art exhibition, all of it was censored by Israel. And why? Because it is actually resistance, because paintings tell the story and the history of people and the struggles they face in checkpoints, in how they were expelled from their houses, of how they are struggling, living under the occupation. So of course art is, of course, a type of resistance.
And it's I think it just echoing what you just said, art, Palestinian artists creating art, it's just proof of a rich Palestinian culture, and it's proof of a heritage, and it's proof of something that Israel and pro-Israelis, as you said, their whole thing is erasing that culture. So just by creating that art and by putting it out there, no matter what the content actually is, I feel like when we look at your art, it's not necessarily a constant kind of like extremely political or politicized art. Obviously it is in essence, because you can't separate the politics from it. But when we look at it, it's not, it's just like, it's your self-expression so much of the time. But just that, I think, is enough to say, you know what, you want to erase Palestine, you want to erase our culture, you want to pretend like it never existed.
But we are here,
Yeah.
Exactly.
On that concept that, as you said, art is resistance, I think it is so intertwined, as we've been speaking about, with this sense, you often also hear existence is resistance.
Exactly.
And I think it's so clear from what you're saying that art, for you and for many others, and for many other Palestinians in particular, art, I guess we should clarify whether that is poetry, whether that is visual work, whether that is even spoken work, work, or
Yeah.
I mean, spoken, you know, even songs and music and
Exactly.
things. It's the expression of what that existence means and what that sense of humanity and what that sense of, you know, being a Palestinian means. And one of the things I love about your work so much is that I honestly think it's impossible to look at any of the work that you've produced and feel hate. I think it really does. I mean, not that I would even did in the first place, but I can just, I can't even comprehend how someone, I mean, the last post as of today that you put up was, you know, an image of, you know, a woman kind of side on with, I believe it's a dove over her face, or her nose and her face. And it's like, it's such a, I mean, I don't I don't understand how anyone could look at that just beautiful image and just see a sense of hate. And I think that's just another level, and, you know, another dimension of just how powerful your work is. It's exposing, you know, the humanity of Palestinians, of those who are, you know, facing oppression outside of Palestine as well. And it really just does connect so many people in being the audience, in feeling those emotions. And I guess I wanted to ask maybe a bit more directly, in terms of, I mean, are there key emotions that, you know, you want to provoke?
So the thing that I really paint how I exactly feel, because at the first place, when I finish a painting, I care the most about the painting satisfying me at the beginning, feeling that, yes, this is the painting that I can post online and people can interact with. Otherwise, I wouldn't post it, because for me, the most important thing is the genuinity of the emotion in the painting. Because at the end, as long as I put everything I have inside in the painting, this means that other people will also feel it, even in different ways. But at the end, it triggers feeling. And when people start feeling something, they will start question and think, and they will start interpret things differently. And this is how people started like sending me, like, you changed how we thought, and we are now very we support you, we support your people, we support Palestine. And the fact that I have seen in my life a lot of graphic pictures, and I have seen it in my eyes when my neighbor, she was actually like, she's only 1 block away from us. She was a very connected neighbor to my family. I saw her shattered in pieces. I'm sorry. She was like in pieces, and I saw that in my eyes. So imagine for me as a child having like a neighbor who would come to us, celebrate with us. She was a Christian old lady, and like she was celebrating with us each Muslim occasion. So having this, and then within a blink of an eye, seeing her in this situation, I could have painted about this. I could have painted all the children who've been cut. I could painted blood that I have seen through a lot in TV and in person. But for me, I felt that the strength is how you can transform the reality you see into a more powerful image that could convey more than one meaning of murder, but also resistance, existence, and also a message of hope, and a message of, like, because as you see in my paintings, I paint almost in everyone a dove, which is a message of peace. So this is how people like really interacted massively when I started posting in Facebook, because people are really tired of seeing the graphic pictures, because they feel like how much they can interact with it. But within a painting, they can look at it, they can start feeling more, and they can start interpreting more meanings through one picture. So this is what I was really keen to do. I never painted blood in my life. I never I never wanted to get an image that I see by a journalist and copying it into an image, but I'd rather do it my way of painting.
That's phenomenal. And I guess on I'm literally just in awe of everything you're saying. But I mean, I wanted to ask you as well. Obviously, you started painting at, you know, a young age, at around, it was 14. You said you the first time you I guess, picked up your paintbrush that you'd been gifted
Yeah.
by school. Obviously, at 14, there was so much going on. There was the bombings. It was the fear that you were feeling, and that was very much what gave birth to your work. If I'm not wrong in saying, but maybe getting older or even now, what were there key individuals or key movements that really inspire you when you go to paint? Is there anyone who you can really appreciate that you've had that connection with them as well, and you can form the same bond that I guess you are currently inspiring in the generations younger than us?
Well, that's a great question, because it's important to say that my uncle, my mother's brother, he's a very Palestinian artist. He's an abstract painter. He's very established. He was a literature in Al-Aqsa University for art school in Gaza Strip. So I already had an idea of what acrylic, what canvas, what varnish, what, like, all those things related with art, I got to know through my uncle. And when he first figured that I actually have a talent, although it was like more like a raw talent, he started guiding me. Like, he helped me with art material. He started guiding me on what to do and how to start. And that was a very, very important and rich source of information.
I can imagine.
Although, like, I study something that has absolutely nothing to do with art. It may be the opposite of art. It's political science, international relations. And
wow. Wow. That's incredible.
That's a big wow, I know. And I was saying, like, no, everything has connection with art. No, that's not true. Political science is black, art is white. So, like, when I was younger, we studied art. Like, we had an art class every week. Of course, that was like, it was not a very serious thing because it was always taken by a mathematic or science classes. But I learned a lot about, like, the history of art. I studied about Picasso. I knew Freda when I was young. I also knew about like iconic Palestinian artists, Liman Mansour, Nabil Hanani, Hawa from Gaza, Taysir Barakat, all those big names from Palestinian artists I knew even before I became an artist. So I also had background from my school, which is I'm very thankful that I had.
I mean, I think Joseph's question is really interesting to me because I think that I studied in high school. I studied some art history, and so we got really used to dissecting all these artworks, and from all over the world. But so many of the ones that I recognized from before were the ones that are by the masters, and usually those are from the Western world. And so much of art in the Western world is inspired by the art before them, and it's all about we're changing it up now. We're going from this form of art to this form of art. And I think what's really interesting is that I get a sensation from you and also from many Palestinian artists. And this is not to say that you're not inspired by other artists, but it's almost like art emerges out of necessity rather than just out of mere inspiration. Or wanting to be part of the artistic canon. So I think that's really powerful. It was necessary almost to you, I feel, and how you've expressed your love for art and why you started doing art. That it was necessary for you, and
exactly.
I mean, it's beautiful work. And I think we were all looking at your paintings, and we were just saying how I said that I felt there was this incredible sensation of relaxation and calmness, but at the same time, I just felt that there was something bubbling underneath the surface. That it wasn't just you weren't just saying we're chill and there's nothing to it. we're just relaxing. You know, it's just these very beautiful scenes, these very these figures, as you said, that don't, you know, it doesn't include violence, but there is something underneath there that is calling for people to take to give this more attention than just, you know, a surface level kind of, oh, this is just any other artistic expression. So I mean, kind of just to finish up our conversation for today. Apartheid Off Campus is all about, you know, mobilizing the youth, and bringing and really stressing the importance that students and young people, the power that they have to make change. And so what we wanted to ask you is, how do you see your role as a young artist within a global movement for justice in Palestine?
And can I just add on to the end of that? I mean, what would you say to, I guess, almost to yourself, obviously looking back, if you could say something to when you were, you know, 8, 9, people who are in the situation that you were once in, what would you say to those people, as well as, I guess, the younger activists who, you know, are looking for ways of self-expression?
Like, you mean like people living under attack? How would I advise them? Yeah. Well, it's a question that I need to think of.
No, take your time. Because fine, of course.
It's a few questions. If I was younger self, what would I tell myself? And also my role in the global movement of justice for Palestine.
Yeah. You can answer them separately by all means, Malak. That's fine.
Well, English is not my my English sometimes is not really understandable, but I'll try to explain how I see myself as like someone who can affect the global movement for justice in Palestine. I'd say that sometimes fall into this thing that I'm just one individual, how much I can do, like I'm not that effective. But it's very important that we have this strong belief that what we do is gonna change. If not now, it will in the future. So it's very important that we do everything from heart, because we're a human being. We rely pretty much on the feelings we get from people and the feelings we get from almost everything around us. So how I see that I'm playing a role, I'm doing what I can to paint what I feel have to be seen by people, and what people have to understand about this certain thing. And I have to say that something, not only activism for Palestine, like for the Palestinian movement, but also for me, for Palestinian women. Like I'm a very feminist Palestinian artist, and I also stress on the role of Palestinian women in activism, in society, in almost all aspects of our life. Our voices are important, because sometimes we are told the opposite. So I stress that everyone plays a very important role. At the end, the world is not only about me, about you. It's a chain of people. So I see that I'm doing my part through painting. I wish I can do more, but like like one day things will change. I have a big belief in that. Like things will change as long as people start searching for the truth.
Yeah. And a good place to start is your work, I guess. For me, at least.
That's gorgeous, Malak. Honestly, that's such a beautiful way to put it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us.
And just one last question. And honestly, this is the final question now. But we always like to end our podcast episode just by asking, what has been your proudest moment as an artist, as someone resisting, And I know that's a big question, so by all means, if you want to take your time, or it could be one moment, or it can be a collection, or just maybe just like one standout.
The proudest moment. Well, I spoke like last year. I traveled to like I guess 7 countries to speak at and I had one like in Germany, Switzerland for the book that I was a big part of. Um, I always feel very hopeful when people start asking me questions about life in Palestine, and it's not like they don't mean it in a political way, but how do you have your normal day in Palestine? How it feels, and like people who have really little knowledge start asking me, it means that this is a very big step for them to know the truth about Palestine and the Palestinian struggle. But a good moment, a happy moment was I spoke in DC in Jerusalem Fund Gallery, and there was a Zionist who always goes to Palestinian activists speaking engagements and always interrupt them and always try to really destroy the event. And it happened over than 5 times.
Yeah.
Then like I saw him and I say, we're up to no good. I was scared because at the end, I don't want to be anxious and to not be able to respond.
Yeah.
And for me, even he did not react by anything. And that was surprising for me and other people, like other Palestinians.
Yeah.
So what it meant that he could not answer because you cannot deny my story. You cannot deny the history I left.
No.
You cannot deny that I lived through 3 wars. So I felt strong at that time. But yeah, like every time people like give me their feedback. Every time people say about changing and say about how my art has helped them. So I always feel very proud, to be honest, when I hear this very meaningful feedbacks from people.
And rightfully so. Like what you're doing is phenomenal, and I'm sure many others listening to this, but definitely myself, I feel just like so inspired and just a new sense of hope, just speaking to you and having looked at seen your work is phenomenal. I think what a way to summarize just how powerful your work really is with that story that you've just told us. And Malak, a massive thank you for joining us on this episode. It has been more than a pleasure. It's been phenomenal. And for all those listening, by all means, go and check out Malak's work, whether that's on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook. The details will be in the little description that will be below this podcast. But yeah, once again, Malak, thank you, and I'm sure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much,
I really enjoyed the podcast, and
thank you.
I look forward to your next projects and your next post. Thank you so much for everything you do. It's really meaningful, and it's a way for change.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if you want to be involved in that change, please do go follow us at Apartheid Campus on Facebook and Instagram, and AOC_movement on Twitter. Thank you very much, and see you next time.
Palestine remains in my heart forever. We stand for peace, times of war. We shan't surrender. Remember, it did.